say that people that talk to themselves like to talk to the smartest person in the room. I don't know about that.
In this case, it's very possible.
Let's see. Okay.
I think I'm even more impressed that you're here now than when you came yesterday.
I actually woke up without an alarm.
Wow.
It was shocking.
It's 11:30 at night in Chicago. Yeah. Perfect time to sit with the brain.
My body was thinking, time to get up and go running through Chassidus.
Okay, we started ice base yesterday. And the Rebbe is explaining shot in the pasuk. Adam ki Yaakov became korban lavaya. Uh-oh. Yeah. Adam ki Yaakov became min habahima. Min habakar. Min hasain. Dot. So we didn't see the rest of the class.
Morning.
Okay. So this is the class in the beginning of Yikra that teaches us how to serve God. Some people ask, what's Chassidus about? What's it about? A person who wants to come, what we learned yesterday, a person who wants to come close to Kadosh Baruch Hu is dependent on you to be a korban l'Hashem. So this word mikem, at this point in the pasuk, is really relating back to the beginning of the pasuk. Adam ki Yaakov, a person who wants to come close, is dependent on you. And we just saw the beginning of that. We didn't see the explanation of it. Okay? That's the shot in the pasuk at this point. We're going to see that there's going to be a second shot in the pasuk where we say Adam ki Yaakov mikem korban lavaya. From you there has to be a korban to Hashem. But at this point, this part of the pasuk is going this way. We're going to see later that it's going to go this way, but we haven't seen that yet.
Wait, Yikra is for what?
What?
Yikra is
Close.
the offering? Yikra.
Yeah, creed. What does it sound like? What are the letters? What are the main letters of the word? Kuf, Resh, Ves. Okay, what does that sound like? What does it look like? Another word in the same pasuk, same sentence.
Like offering?
Really? This language makes sense?
Yeah.
I thought that meant you.
Okay, so that's what we saw so far. So let's just see it again. Right? Starting from 4 lines down. The Rebbe said we're going to learn the secrets of serving the Kadosh Baruch Hu from this pasuk about korbanos. Right? 4 lines down, middle of the line. V'zeu, and this is pshat. Adam ki Yaakov, a person who wants to come close. Right now, in the pshat, in the pasuk, it's a person who sacrifices, right? Who brings close a korban, who sacrifices a korban. But in the pnimius Torah, and in the inner meaning of the pasuk, it's talking about the service of a person in Olam Hazeh. Adam ki Yaakov, ha'adam, kasher yiskarev lelukus. First word on the 5th line. Hine, mikem hu korban lavaya. From you, there's a korban to Hashem. What does that mean? That doesn't mean you sacrifice yourself, even though that is what it's going to mean later, and that we're going to learn it that way also, halfway through the page. But right now, we're not learning that at all. We're learning something completely different. Mikem ubachem talui hadavar. It is dependent upon you, liyos korban lavaya, to be a korban. Now, mentioned it yesterday, but it's important to mention because the Nefesh Habahamis is a pretty powerful creature. The Nefesh Habahamis is going to turn that into some depressing statement that says it's all dependent on you, and if you don't do it, you're to blame, and you're the lowlife. That's not what the Rebbe is saying at all. He's saying something completely different. Let's see. Mikem ubachen talu yadavar liyos korban l'Hashem, to be a korban. Hainu liyos karoiv l'Hashem. What does the word korban mean in this context? The word korban in the simple shot in the pasuk means a sacrifice. It means a cow or a goat or a sheep. Right? And the pneumius of the pasuk, what does it mean? To be close, to be a korban, to bring yourself karov, close to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Diyadua. Karbonos, heim inyan kiruv hakayches v'chushim. Why is a korban called a korban? It's called a korban because it's all about bringing something close. What are you doing? You're elevating all of the powers and the senses of that animal up to a higher state of reality. It's closer to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Literally, you're burning it up. Uba b'zeh levar. What does that come to explain? In Avodah. In Gashmias, you're taking a physical animal and elevating the physical animal to a more spiritual state. In terms of our Avodah, what's that? The kasher ba'lis karev elokus. When a person comes to approach a Kodesh Baruch Hu, lehit karev, right, to bring himself close, hit pa'al, reflexive. So he's bringing himself close to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Mikem, it's from you. Adam ki yakriv, a person who wants to come close. Mikem, it's from you. It's dependent on you. Hainu shetalu yadavar bechem. It's dependent on you. Now, what does that mean? Da'al yemer adam, a person should not say, ech eskarev ela lukus, how can I come close to a Kodesh Baruch Hu? Right? He might think that he's not able to do this. Ubefrat, and particularly, why might he think that about himself? He might not think that about other people because he doesn't know all the other people's hang-ups. But what does he know about himself? He knows all his hang-ups. Ubefrat kasher yodeya, when he knows mahusaya atzmi, his true being. And when the Rebbe says his true being, obviously he's not talking about the true being of his godly soul. He's talking about his true being as a human. In Olam Hazeh, he knows what he's really all about. Right? Shehu b'shiflus, that he's in a low level, and meluchlach bekama inyanim loy tevim, and he's been soiled by certain things that are not so positive. Right? He knows that about himself. Might be other people don't know, but he knows. V'im came, if so, hu betachlis arichuk me'elokus. He might think about himself that he's very, very distant from God, and therefore might ask himself the following question: Eches karev elokus. How can I come close to a Kodesh Baruch Hu? I understand how the guy sitting next to me can come close to a Kodesh Baruch Hu because he's an amazing guy. But what about me? I know my failings. I know those things I'm not so good at. Okay, so then maybe I don't think I can come close to the Eibishter. Maybe I think I'm an exception to the rule, which is, of course, always the way the Nefesh Habahamis thinks, that I'm more important than everybody else and different than everybody else and more this than everybody else. So when it comes to negativity, I'll also be more negative than everybody else, right? Because, of course, I'm just more important than everybody else. That's the way the Nefesh Habahamis thinks. Right, so he's going to say, "Oh, I'm special and I'm different, and everybody else can do it, but I can't." And he'll come up with all sorts of interesting reasons as to why it is he might not be able to serve God. What's the first thing the Kadosh Baruch Hu says to us in Parshas Vayikra, in Sefer Vayikra, which is the first time the Eibishter starts describing Avodat Hashem? Right, we talked about it yesterday. Bereshis, history of the world, creation of the Jewish people. Shmeis, Yitzias Mitzrayim, Matan Torah, building the Mishkan, certain basics that have to be in place. All sorts of halachas also, but not so much halachas about serving the Eibishter. Halachas about, obviously it has to do with serving the Eibishter, but they're mostly halachas about, how life works, mishpatim, etc., etc. Okay, when does Avodah start? We have a base of Mikdash, and now we have to serve the Eibishter in that Mishkan in the desert, in that sanctuary in the desert. That's Vayikra. Different karbonis. Okay. What's the first thing the Eibishter says to us? You want to come close to me? You can. You can. It's dependent on you. What's the first thing a person has to say? Don't say I can't. Don't say how can I come close to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Val zehu eimer. The Kadosh Baruch Hu says mikem. Bachem adavar talui. It's dependent on you. If it's dependent on me, that means I can do it. The kol echad ve'echad misrael. Every single Jew, Yachol Lemer, is able to say. And he's about to say something quite astounding. It's a Maimer Chazal. What the Rebbe is quoting right now is a medrash, right? And what a Chazal say?
Sorry, what does it say?
Ve'al zehu omer mikem bachem. Why doesn't it say ve'al zehu omer bachem adavar talu?
Because the pasuk says mikem. Just same shot in the pasuk, right? That's the pasuk. The kol echad v'echim Yisrael yochel loymar. Every single Jew can say, right? This is a medrash, Tanid be'Eliyahu. So who said this? Eliyahu Navi. Right? It's a medrash that records all sorts of different things that Eliyahu Navi said. So Eliyahu Navi said this. And Eliyahu Navi knows what we're about. He's half angel. Okay, so life is a little different for him than it is for the rest of us. But he also understands what life is about in Eilam Hazeh. And what does he say? Every single Jew can say, Masai yagiru Masai, when will they reach my deeds? L'maisa avoisai, to the deeds of my fathers. Meaning, when will my deeds be like the deeds of my fathers? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Now, of course, the emphasis is on deeds, not on etzem. It's not the essential reality. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are tzaddikim, and we're not tzaddikim. We're aspiring beinonim. Tanya, yesterday. Right? That Benoni is shaykh to every single person. What does that mean? That means your deeds can be the same as Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, because the Benoni's deeds are connected to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. His thought, speech, and action is connected to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Does that mean that he doesn't have a subconscious state that might want to disconnect him? No, he has that. It's called an Nefesh Bahamis. And does that try to gain control over his conscious reality? Yes. But the Benoni, who's he, that once that negative influence tries to get control of his conscious reality, overcomes it and tells it to go away, and doesn't think about it, and doesn't speak about it, and doesn't do it. Is that possible? Yes, absolutely. I mean, moment by moment, that's possible. There's nothing forcing me to do anything or not do something. Right? There's no external objective force. Some subjective reality, okay. So if it's a subjective reality, then theoretically I have control over it because it's me. I mean, who else has control over it? Does that mean it's easy? It's not easy. It can be very, very difficult. But at that moment, if I think about it moment by moment, right now, in this moment, do I have control? A desire to, who knows what, to do something, to not do, to stay in bed, okay. At this moment, do I have the ability to get out of bed? Yes. Do I? Okay, that's up to me, isn't it? Either I decide to do that or I don't decide to do it. But do I have the objective ability to do it? Yes. And if I don't, then that's a subjective decision not to do that, right? That might be a reasonable one. I might not feel well. I might have a headache, whatever. Okay, fine. But it can also just be lazy. Okay. So could I theoretically sit and learn at this moment as opposed to do something else? Yes, I could. Right? But it's just up to me to decide. Who's forcing me to look at the news on my phone instead of sitting and learning a Rashi on Chumash? Who's forcing me to do that exactly? No one's forcing me to do that. I made a decision that that's what I'm going to do. Okay, can I change that decision? I can change that decision immediately. I can press the button on the side of the phone that makes the screen go dark. And it might be the Rashi is open in front of me, right? I don't even have to open the Rashi. The book might be open, right? But I just all of a sudden, oh, wait, what about? Right? Okay. So put the what about away. Am I able to do that? Yes. Okay. That moment, what action am I doing? I'm doing an action of Yaakov, of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Before I was doing an action of Esau. I don't know. Right? But do I have the ability to stop doing that and start doing that? Yes, absolutely. There's no question I have that ability. Right? Can I do that moment by moment? Well, if I live it moment by moment, it's going to be a lot easier. If I think to myself, for the next 27 years, I can never ever listen to anything my Yetzer Hara tells me. Well, okay, that's a rather daunting task, isn't it? My goodness, 27 years? I mean, don't I get like one Tuesday off or something? I mean, get something, right? Okay, well, I can't live that way. Right? But what can I can live right now in this moment that there's something that has to be done that's positive, and I can connect to that positivity right now, whether it's within the context of thought, speech, action, whatever it is. Right? So at this moment, what are my deeds? My deeds are deeds of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That's what they are. Right? That story we told about was it Avram Paris for bringing with Rabbi Groner when Rabbi Groner was a young man. He was a bacher, right? Avram Paris for bring with them. Avram Paris is a very special chassid, right? So for bring with them, and what did he say? And not that again, chas v'shalom, this isn't a license to do aveiros. It's just an understanding of how avodah works. If you have a taiva to do something and you said no to the taiva for 59 minutes, but at the end of it, at the last minute, it got you. So there's two things happening. Yes, at the 50th, 59th minute, you might have failed. That moment was not a moment I'm going to make a video of, right? But for the first 59 minutes, what was I doing? I was succeeding. Okay, it's also true. Now that doesn't mean that I allow myself to fail in the 60th minute because I was successful for 59. That's not the way it goes, right? On the other hand, it can't be said that for 59 minutes the person wasn't successful at what they were doing. Okay, Baruch Hashem. So that's uplifting. Did they fall off the cliff at the end? Yes, they fell off the cliff at the end, but they held on for 59 minutes. That's, again, it's not a license to fall off the cliff. Someone can use it that way. I mean, anybody can take anything true and turn it into idiocy. But that's the way it goes. Right? So every single person can say, this is Maimar Chazal, every single person can say, when will my deeds be like the deeds of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? In this moment, do I have control over what I'm thinking, speaking, and doing? Yes, I do. I can abandon that control, but I do have that control if I want to. Right? And then the Rebbe says 4 words that are extremely challenging. Ve'ein b'zeh bolus klal, and there are no limitations in this. Meaning, I can also do it the 60th minute, not just the first 59. Okay. But it's all a matter of how I look at it, right? I mean, if I look at it as a just, moment by moment, I'm living life now. When? What are you doing? I'm doing now. What are you doing now? Now I'm positive. I mean, I'm connected to something positive. What was I connected to 5 minutes ago? What difference does it make? I do it right now. Right now, I'm connected to something positive. Baruch Hashem. Okay. And what about next minute? I'm going to do my best to make the next minute I'm also connected to something positive. Might there be things that happen in the course of the day that aren't in accordance with the ultimate plan? That probably happens to most people. Okay, so how do you deal with that? Well, just turn it off and do something positive. Right? What does the Alter Rebbe say? Right? You're going to get all upset and break your heart. Oh my goodness gracious, I made a mistake. Well, who do you think you are exactly? Why are you so surprised by the mistake? Don't be so surprised by the mistake. Yes, you made a mistake. Again, not to be irreverent relative to the mistake. But what's the proper response to the mistake right now? Right now, to stop the mistake and start doing something positive. It's all I'm going to sit down and stop life and rip my garments and put ashes on my head. Oh my goodness gracious, I made a mistake. Oh, Boker Tov. Yes, that's certainly true. You did, right? And you probably made a few more in the course of the day. Right? That's the way it goes. So just don't undo the mistake. How do I undo the mistake? By stopping the mistake and doing something positive. The Ein Shum Davar, right? This is amazing what the Rebbe is saying. Ein Shum Davar Ameneya Uma'akev Chalila. There is nothing preventing us, Chalila, right? Like Chas v'Shalom, heaven forfend. Laloisu lagia liskara lelukus, to go up and reach and approach elukus. There's nothing stopping a yid from being close to the Eibishter. Why? Because ultimately, we've learned so many times that that's our essential being. That's who we really are. Okay, so then what's stopping me from doing that? There's only one thing stopping me from doing that, and that's that person I refer to as I. Okay, so who has control over that person? Well, I have control over that person, don't I? There are obviously things that happen in the course of life that make it harder to have control in certain situations, right? I mean, we understand that. Most people understand enough about psychology, as it's called, to appreciate the fact that it might be that certain things happen in the context of someone's life that makes certain things more challenging than they might be for other people. Okay, that's certainly true, right? And that doesn't mean it's not hard work, right? But moment by moment, who has control over my life? I have control over my life. Who else? I don't understand. Who else has control over my life? Who decides what I'm going to say? Who decides what I'm going to do? Who decides what I'm supposed to think? Thinking's the hardest one, obviously, because all sorts of silliness creeps in there. Right, okay. Well, who decides that that's a reasonable thing to think about? Well, at some point, I might make a conscious decision, or I might make a decision, since we're going to use the word conscious later in the sentence. I'm going to make a decision to think about this consciously, to actually think about it, as opposed to be, all of a sudden you become aware of a thought that's in your head that you don't really think is such a positive thought, and then at that moment you say, go away, leave me alone, not interested. Right? Hard to get rid of? Yeah, hard to get rid of. Okay, what's a good way to get rid of it? Well, the Rebbeim talk about this. It's not like, you can sing a niggin, right? Or start saying over to yourself words of Tanya, Tehillim, Mishnayos that you've memorized. Right? The Rebbeim say this. How many times do the Rebbe say that in a Yom Yom? You should be armed with certain things that you've memorized, so that when you want to elevate the street as you're walking in it, you can say over those words. Okay. The taheret avir, to purify the air around you. When you're on a bus, you're on a train, what should you be doing? Saying words of Torah. So now, in all fairness, today, it's not so hard because you don't even have to remember very much stuff, because all you have to do is, mine's over there. All you have to do is take out your piece of plastic and turn on the weekly parsha, and you can learn the today's chittis on the train or on the bus. What's the big deal? So now you're elevating, not only are you doing something useful for you, you're purifying the air on the bus for everybody on the bus. Right? You don't have to stand up and make a speech to everybody about how you're purifying their air and they should, maybe throw coins at you or something. That's not the idea. But you are purifying the air on the bus, right? Okay. Might there be someone on the other side of the aisle watching Netflix on his phone and he's, sort of undoing it? He's not undoing what you're doing. Yes, he's adding tumah, but your Torah is so much more powerful than his tumah that it wipes it out. Because a little bit of light wipes out a lot of dark. Right? So who knows what they're usually not watching movies. They're usually finding some stupid game and playing some game. It's always stuff falling and it disappears. And a lot of colors. The colors are nice. A lot of colors. Sometimes it's squares. Sometimes it's round. Sometimes it goes stars. It's like always watch the action happening next to you on the phone. Right. Okay. So there's we can do something positive. Adam ki yakri. We want to come close to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So that so often we think of that in terms of some sort of general reality about my life. I want to be close, and it has something to do with some general reality that I'm living, which is, there's truth to that, Beseder, okay, but what does it really mean? Right now, I want to be close to the Eibishter, so what do I just do? A mitzvah right now, I understand. What's stopping you from being close to the Eibishter right this minute? Right? I want to be close to the Eibishter, so say some words of Torah. Go do a favor for another Jew. You don't have the head to learn something right now? Okay, so take out your phone and open up your WhatsApp or whatever you've got to communicate with other people, and send a 15-second message to someone who if they get a message from you that says, I was thinking of you, I just hope everything's okay, love you and miss you and look forward to seeing you when I get back to the other side of the pond, that he'll have a smile on his face when he sees it. Okay, so you just made a Jew smile. You just did something good. It doesn't have to be a Jew. You made a non-Jew smile. Non-Jews are also allowed to smile on that. I read it once in a book. Right? As long as they're not smiling when they're beating us up, then everything's okay. Okay? Say there. So I think to send another human being that little note. What did it cost me? What happened? It was so terrible. Like I don't get lunch today because I did a favor for another person. Right? Want to be close to the Eibishter. The Eibishter's just everywhere. There's so many ways to be close to him. Ein b'zeh agbalas klal. There's no limitation. If there is, it's only because I'm imposing it. First thing the Eibishter says to us in Sefer V'yikra, you want to come close to me? So be close to me. What do you want? I'm everywhere. Become close. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. So my mother always says when I tell her I'm coming to visit, I'm not going anywhere. She's 101. She doesn't leave. She doesn't go very many places. Okay. The Eibishter's everywhere. Don't worry. He's there. When you want to go visit, he's there. He's not out and about. He's not traveling. You call the Eibishter and you get a message, I'm out of the office for the next 3 weeks. Please call back in 3 weeks. That doesn't happen with the Eibishter. It happens with other people. It doesn't happen with the Eibishter. He's always there. It's really quite amazing. So there's the general reality of that our life should be a more godly life, and that's real, and that's true, and that's important. And then there's also just moment by moment, right now, if I want to be close to the Eibishter, what can I do? We can do what we're doing. Baruch Hashem, we're sitting and learning Torah. Right? If the doctor were here, I'd explain that's why we don't have our Galachan class. Because what can happen if I have the rugalach? I can decide right now I'm going to get into the rugal and I'm not going to get into the top. Right? Because it's very hard to eat a rugalach and not be involved in chewing it and tasting it and swallowing it. Okay. Can I do it? I can do that. I'll say that. But I don't trust men to do it. Maybe women. Women can do two things at once. Men,
We could elevate.
close their eye. Yeah, I can. Okay, we don't have to elevate it because you're sitting in the Why do I have to elevate the rugalach? I can always figure out ways. My brother always used to say, he's kafia. His kafia is not eating my rugalach. Okay. His hafka is eating yours and elevating yours, transforming yours into mine. Right? That's his hafka. Such an amazing thing, and it sounds so simple. Now we know it's not simple, right? Because we experience how it's not simple. Okay, but the Rebbeim are constantly reminding us that it's not so hard. Right? We turn it into something just impossible. Why? Well, we know why. Our Never Shabbat is doing it, but how do we do that? By turning it into something that's so huge. So, at some global level, it's very huge. Okay, but this moment right now, can I do something positive? Yes. Okay, so do it. What are you waiting for? I understand. What's the problem? So do it. Do something positive. And if you realize you're in the middle of something negative, which can also happen, all of a sudden you, so to speak, wake up and you become aware of the fact that, wait a minute, what I'm thinking about right now is really not what I want. Okay, so stop it. So go away. Oh my gosh, I'm so terrible. I was thinking about. Stop that. That's worse than thinking the thing you were thinking about before. Just stop it and then think about something positive. Put a positive thought in your head. Start singing a niggin. Say, Adam ki yakri mikem korban levaya, mina baka, mina behema, mina baka, mina tzoyin. Put some Torah in your mouth. Right? Okay. Will the craziness come back? Well, we all know it will, right? How long? Like 4 seconds or 5 minutes or tomorrow? I don't know. It depends. Every time it's different. Okay, so what do I do? Same thing. Same thing. Very often, and it's so interesting because when people learn Tanya, Tzaddik, Beinoni, Russia, people think the Rebbe is describing existential realities of people. Is he a tzaddik? Is he a beinoni? In this moment, what am I? Am I a tzaddik, a beinoni, or a Russian? Right now. I don't know. It depends on the moment, doesn't it? Right? Depends what I'm doing. If I'm overcoming a negative desires, and at this moment I'm not a tzaddik, I'm a beinoni. If I'm succumbing to that desire, at this moment I'm not a tzaddik or a beinoni. Right? If I'm living life within the context of doing something positive and theoretically have the possibility to do something negative, but it doesn't even enter my consciousness in any way, shape, or form because it's just not there, like we talked yesterday about murder, okay, so then there's a little bit of tzaddik being revealed right now. Fine, okay. But how often does the opportunity of murder come up such that the fact that we have no time for it becomes part of our everyday conscious life? Not so much, right? Okay. I guess if you walk around with a gun, it would be more. There's a lot of people walking around with a gun, right? For good reason in this country. Okay, fine. So it's not like the person has this taiva to take out his gun and shoot someone just stunned because it would be a fun thing to do. So why? Because he's a tzaddik relative to the mitzvah, but don't murder. There's no shaykhs to that. Baruch Hashem. Most people are like that. There's places where most people aren't. Someone I know was in Khan Yunis the first time we went into Khan Yunis during this war, which we made. This was a long time ago, right? Because we started in the north and moved south. So by the time we got to Khan Yunis, which is in the southern half of Gaza, so house to house in Khan Yunis, there was not one house that anybody he knew went into. He was with a whole dude that took over Khan Yunis. Not one house that didn't have bombs and ammunition. Not one house. The innocent civilian What innocent civilian? So there's taka communities and societies that it's really hard to find people who aren't into murder. Like it's wild. Whoa. You'd figure, most people not. A few people can. No, not the communists, evidently. They've all got it. Every single house that they went into had arms. Everyone. Now, yeah, there must be some that didn't, but I mean, every house, his dude, his chevra, his pluga. They wasn't a dude, his pluga. His pluga went into a certain neighborhood, and every single house, that's what they uncovered. There were no people there, right? They had gone. They'd fled. It's unbelievable. Okay, so there's people like that too, which is just absolutely frightening. I think for the rest of us, we just can't figure it out. Like, how do you get that way? Okay, fine, Baruch Hashem, we can't even figure it out how anybody could get that way. We're so far from that taiva, we can't even imagine why anybody would have the taiva. There might be taivas we don't have that we can understand why other people do. Okay, I get it. I just, Baruch Hashem, don't have it. But this one, weird. Okay, no. So thank God that you don't have it instead of fetching it, God, that you might have other taivas. Very, very famous line of Chazal, another Maimer Chazal. The Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't come in a tyrannical way with his creatures. A Gemara, that is Trunya, I assume, is the root of the English word tyranny. Right? The Kadosh Baruch Hu does not come in a tyrannical way with his creatures. There are two Maimarim of the Frierdiker Rebbe based on that statement. One's called Ma'al Toiv Lecha, another is called Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baber Trunya. They're both in Tracing, and they're very important in my mind. They're not long. Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't ask us to do things that we can't do, which is what the Rebbe is about to say. Umizgale umeir b'kol echad ve'echad lefi keichei. He reveals himself, meaning Kadosh Baruch Hu, and shines in each and every one of us in accordance with that person's strength and ability. Meaning, a person wants to come close to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, they can. Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Lema Ever Yam." It's not on the other side of the sea. Lema Shamayim. It's not in heaven. Where's the Eibishter? Right in front of me. Right? Rav Levi Yitzchak once saw someone running through the market. And he stopped him. He said, "Where are you running?" He said, "I'm running to my parnasa. I'm running to make up my parnasa." He said, "How do you know your parnasa is over there? Maybe it's over there. Maybe you're running away from it. Where's the Eibishter? I'm running over there. I'm going to go find the Eibishter. I don't have to go anywhere. He's right here. He's right wherever we are. Right? There's always a possibility of doing something in any moment that will connect us to the Eibishter. You want to be connected to the Eibishter? So connect to the Eibishter. That's what the Eibishter says at the beginning of Sefer Vayikra. So amazing. You want to connect to me? Connect to me. I'm right here. Ein Bezek Bolas Klal. You don't want to connect to me? Ooh, there ain't Bezek Bolas Klal Gam. There's also unlimited opportunities to disconnect. Welcome to Elam Hazeh. Okay. Now the disconnect, we'll see in chapter 4 what that disconnection means. Ukedeis of a Medrash Rabbah. And as it is in Medrash Rabbah, third Medrash we've quoted in the last 6 lines, Kishani Mevakesh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking, so to speak. When I request, Eini Mevakesh Lefi Keichi, I'm not asking in accordance with my abilities, my potential, Lefi Keichan, rather in accordance with their abilities. When the Kadosh Baruch Hu asks us to do something, he's not asking us to do something that he can do. He's asking us to do something that we can do. So, believe it or not, we can actually even, and this is really quite astounding, I guess we can, because there's a pasuk in the Torah that says we have to. So I guess we can, because he doesn't ask us to do things that we can't do. So can we get our nefesh bahamis to love God? Yes. The Rabbi is going to explain in the next little more than half a page. The Rabbi is going to discuss how do you get your nefesh bahamis to love God? Meaning, how do I get conscious me to love God? He's going to talk about it. Because I guess I can do it because God asked me to. The Eibishter does not ask us to go make Havdalah on the moon every night. Jump to the moon and make Havdalah on the moon. Why? Because I can't jump to the moon. I can't do that. So he doesn't ask me to do that. He asks me to make Havdalah at a place where I can make Havdalah. And if I don't have wine, he doesn't ask me to make Havdalah on wine. Because I can't. Why? Okay, so he doesn't ask me to. So he just make Havdalah on beer. I don't have any beer. Make Havdalah and Coca-Cola. Right? What's the problem? Homer Medina. You don't have wine, so make Havdalah and something else. I'm not asking you to do something you can't do. Right? You don't have anything to drink, okay, so you can't make Havdalah. So I'm not asking you to make Havdalah. If you're in a place where you have nothing to drink, and I'm not asking you to make Havdalah. And if you're in a place where you can't possibly find a candle because you're in jail, and there's no candles, and there's no besamim, and there's no wine, so then you're putter from Havdalah. I'm not asking you to make Havdalah if you can't. He doesn't ask us to do that. Oh, he's waiting. Good. I'm going to be able to mark an X next to Havdalah. Yay! I get to mark this Jew down as an X. It's not God. It's not the way it works. Right? If we can't do it, we're butter. If we can do it, we're chayiv. Right? Are there situations where a Jew can't do a mitzvah? There might be situations where a Jew can't do a mitzvah. He's butter. Right? You're under attack in some place with your gun, and there's enemy soldiers shooting at you, and you're under attack for 36 hours straight. You're chayav to daven shachris? No. How are you supposed to daven shachris? Right? You can't go to sleep either. Right? Remember in basic training, so our basic training was a joke, but our officers went through real basic training, and they were discussing with us. They had a good time with us because we were all old guys. They were afraid of us at first, but then they realized we were harmless. So we actually had a very interesting month together. 20-year-old Israelis and 30-year-old Olim from all sorts of different places. So we would discuss also. They described their basic training, and their basic training was not so easy. And at the end of it, they did a march from Yerushalayim to Chulon. Chulon's by Tel Aviv, right? And a march doesn't mean you're strolling around. You're jogging basically, and you've got all of your tziyud on your back, which is about 50 pounds. And the big fat guy who can't do this, he's in a stretcher, and you're taking turns carrying him, right? The guys who can't do this are in stretchers. But sometimes it's good to be the guy who can't do it. So we asked him, so this was hard. He said, oh, it's the hardest thing I ever did in my life. So he said, well, so what? He said, at some point in the middle, you just want to die. You're in such pain, you just want to die. Like you just want, take me now because I can't do this. I can't take another step. But you do. And at the end, you realize if you have to do something, you can do anything you want. So he said, okay. So that's what you learned in basic training. Did that ever come? Okay, that's what a soldier is, right? So did that ever happen? So that's why I was thinking about it just now, because of what I just said. He said, yes, they were under fire in Lebanon for 36 hours straight, and they couldn't sleep. He said, we stayed awake for 36 hours straight. We just had to. If you have to do it, you do it. What are you going to do? We were a little tired, but we stayed awake for 36 hours straight. They were getting shot at. You can't go to sleep if you're getting shot at, right? You have to figure out where they're shooting and move to a place that's not right. If you decide, okay, I'm just going to go to sleep and hope they don't kill me. Well, they might not, but they might, yes. So he said that's when we realized that everything they taught us was real because we did it. Right? We did it. We made it through. And then, people came and helped them out, and they could get out of there and they could go to sleep for 5 days or whatever they did. I remember telling the story. It was very real. Is this kid 20 years old? This is what he experienced in life, right? It's too bad yeshiva can't be that way. Can't be. People just leave. Can't leave the army. You can leave yeshiva. So if we really challenged people in yeshiva like they did in the old days, like Tamchei Tamibim in the old days, so they're turning out soldiers who stood up to Stalin and didn't blink. But we can't. We don't have to do it that way, Baruch Hashem, because we're not at that kind of war. But it would be nice to be able to challenge people a little more. But you can't really challenge people too much, because they'll just say, "I'm going to another yeshiva where they challenge me less." That's what they would do. Rabbi Wichten's father, 35 years ago, when we were running yeshiva, we had the only time the Rebbe ever gave a bracha for a yeshiva for English-speaking yeshiva for Balei Tshuva in Yerushalayim was Tafshin Mem Tes, which is 36 years ago. So 36 years ago, we wrote the Rebbe. I was part of a group of guys who wrote the Rebbe and asked, with the seventh different attempt at this, and if we could open a yeshiva for Bali Tshuva in Yerushalayim. And we actually had some guys sitting and learning. We told the Rebbe we had guys sitting and learning. If the Rebbe gives us a bracha to open officially, we will, and if not, we won't. So we wrote in Kislev, and we didn't get an answer. On Hey Tavis, we wrote one more time. We told the guys, if we don't get an answer from the Rebbe, we're going to close up shop, and you guys will have to find somewhere to learn, because we're not, the Rebbe's not giving us a bracha, then we don't have a bracha. So we got a bracha back 2 days later. Azkel Letzion, Zalzan Batzlocha, Azkel. It should be with success. I'll mention it by the previous Rebbe's gravesite. That's the lashon of bracha for the Rebbe. So that yeshiva, we struggled, and we were generally pretty small, and about 10, 15 guys. Baruch Hashem. So I remember I used to go to, every time I went to, not every time, but often when I went to America, I would make my way out to Morristown to talk to Rabbi Kaplan's father, just get advice. And, Rabbi Kaplan's father was older and much, much wiser. And so advice on dealing with Bali Tshuva, as the Rosh Hashiva in Morristown, and the heyday of Morristown. So one of the things he said, Baruch Hashem, this Mayanot is proving him wrong. But I hope for all the right reasons. One of the things he said, you'll never have more than 10, 15, 20 bracha. So I said, thank you for the bracha. Why? He said, because Or Sameach and Eshetara aren't going to ask from their bakrim what you're going to have to ask from yours. It'll just be easier over there, and they're going to want to go there. Why would they come to you? Oh, that's wild. That's what he told me.
Wow.
Right? That's wild. Right? Why should I do that? Why should I do something harder if I can do something easier? Why should I break my head if I don't have to?
Is it because of Chassidus? Because you're learning Chassidus, or just?
Not just learning. I'm learning Chassidus is easy. It's amazing. But living Chassidus is hard. I remember for bringing in the old city way back. With this was before we had the yeshiva. So we used to, there were young English-speaking Lubavitchers in town, which I know this is hard to imagine, but there was a time when I was a young English-speaking Lubavitcher, right? With a black beard. So, there was such a time in life, right? I can't remember. We have pictures. My wife shows me pictures. Says, "See, dear, you remember?" Oh, yeah. We used to make Brengans, and the old city was where everything was happening. That was the action. All of the action of the American tourist, and it was all in the old city in those days. This is pre-Intifada. Things were much different in terms of safety in areas that weren't necessarily 100% Jewish, etc., etc. It was much safer. So all the action was in the old city. So we used to make Farbrengens in the old city, and the Ishtar guys used to come to the Farbrengens. Because half the guys in Ishtar, how'd they get from? They got through Chabad houses, and they used to come. And that's why we made them. We would do Hafatzas Amanos. There should be Farbrengens and for guys who aren't in Lubavitch Yeshiva. There wasn't a Lubavitch Yeshiva in Yerushalayim in those days. So I remember there was a kid who I knew very, very, very well because I'd met him on campus. He was from Boston University, from Rabbi Posner, and he came to Eretz Yisrael, and he went to Eshetar, and he was a terrific kid, really a good kid. And he used to come to the Farbrengens all the time because he remembers Lubavitch from the college campus, and he loved it, and he used to come to the Farbrengens. So there was one Farbrengen. They were very, very polite, the guys from Eshetar. I must give them credit. They were very polite, and they would never leave when the rabbi was speaking. If the rabbi was speaking at the Farbrengen, they wouldn't leave. They wouldn't leave the room. But they wouldn't come in for 3 hours. They'd come in for half an hour, 40 minutes. They just wanted to see what was up and hear some interesting ideas and sing a niggin. So they'd always leave during the niggin. They'd sing part of the niggin. They'd get a feel as to when the niggin is ending. And then, 10 guys would get up and leave, which is fine. But they wouldn't leave if you were speaking. Right? They were very polite. So one night I remember for bringing in the Tzemach Tzedek Shul, it was Beis Tammuz, and I don't know why in the world this entered into my head, but anyway, basically I spoke for about 2.5 hours straight, no leGanim, and these poor guys were stuck in the room, right? No one, they kept coming in and not leaving, and there were like 100 guys sitting in the room by the end of this, marathon of 2.5 hours of speaking. What do you talk about on your Beis Tammuz? You talk about Mesiras Nefesh. with that conversation of Rabbi Kaplan, I hadn't had that conversation yet, so it wasn't in my head. But if it would have been if I had had that conversation by then. It was before the conversation. But when he said it, I thought of this. So what he came up to me, I don't remember his name. He was really, really good kid, really nice guy. And he came up at the end and he said, Rabbi, everything you said is true. About Mesiras Nefesh, everything you said is true. But it's too hard. And I know that if I'm sitting in front of a Gemara, I'm doing what God wants, so that's all I'm going to do, and that's enough. Oh. Okay. So now, on one hand, he's right. I'd be sitting in front of a Gemara, you do what God wants, right? But I mean, the idea of understanding what that means, and Mesiras Nefesh, and connecting to the Eibishter, okay. It's easier. It's easier. And it's not that that means a chassid is better than someone who's not a chassid. He's no better. Might be more fortunate. He's no better. Right? Just might be aware of something that someone else isn't aware of. Okay, but say a religious person's better than a non-religious Jew. He's not better. Right? He's just more fortunate. He heard something that someone else didn't get to hear yet. Hopefully they'll get to hear it. And once they hear about it, they hopefully will also be interested in it. But if we want to come close to the Eibishter, we can. Why? Because when the Eibishter asks, he asks in accordance with our ability, not his. Right? He doesn't ask us to do things that he can do. He asks us to do things that we can do. In accordance with the potential of every single one. By virtue of this, therefore it's the potential of every single one of us to come to a very high level of connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu. And not yes in a general sense. In other words, as a person we're more connected generally, but that connection is expressed day to day, moment by moment. That's the true expression of it. Right? If you're married all the time. It's not like you're married only when you're in front of your wife. There are people who are married that way. That's not called being married. Right? Right? There are people who talk about it. As I said it, I realized there are people who are married that way. Every business trip, they're not married. No, seriously. I mean, there are really people who are married that way. Like, that's a pretty heavy way to be married, right? You think about that. I mean, as I said it, I realized, wait a minute, Taka, there are people who aren't married, right? Because when they go to business trip, they're not married. Some of them even take off their ring if they have a ring, right? Generally, men don't wear rings together. Okay, but in some societies, people do wear rings. Okay, fine. Whoa, wow, that's heavy. I mean, think about it, that's very heavy. You know, I think, whoa, that means they're not married. Right? That's not marriage. That's not what marriage is. What's marriage? Marriage is you're married. When? All the time. Every minute you're married, right? Does that mean every single minute you're thinking about your wife and your family? Not every. There's things that are happening that might take you away from that. But in general, what are you thinking about all the time? That's what you're thinking about. Well, you're thinking about them, you're making sure they're okay, especially your kids, they're okay, you know, their education's okay, this is okay, they're going through a difficult time, you're thinking about that, how can you help? They're in your head all the time. Remember waiting, I'm sorry for the Farbrengen, but waiting to daven in the year saying, davening from the Amid for our father. So I was fourth in line in Marav at the Stiebel in our neighborhood. And that means you sit there and you learn for a while, and then, you know, there's usually 2 minyanim going on, so it doesn't take so long, and then you find your minyan and you start. Guys, and it's interesting how everybody helps. It's a very beautiful thing that, you know, in the Shtiblach, so there'll be, 8 or 9, and there'll be people looking, come on, let's go, someone has a chiyuv, let's go, let's make a mark. You need, you daven, like, it's not that you have to put the minyan together. Other people also help you put the minyan together, because they want to make sure that you have a minyan so you can say Kaddish. So there was a guy behind me. He was number 5. And he looked really tired. And it was like 10 o'clock at night. He was really tired. And he said, you know what, I didn't know who he was. I'm just going to daven in your minyan. I'm so tired. I don't know whether I can wait for a minyan for myself. So we started schmoozing. And an idea came up that what? Sorry, who's he saying Kaddish? He was saying Kaddish for his mother. I said, okay. Who'd your mother think about all day long? So he said, oh, me. Right, she thought about you all day long, right? Okay. You have 11 months where you get to pay her back. Did you have to think about her all day long? Where am I davening Shabbos? Where am I davening Mincha? Where am I davening Marif? All day long, that's all you think about. I have to find the meaning, make sure I can say Kaddish. For who? For her. Why? Well, what'd she think about all day? She did it for your whole life. You're doing it for 11 months. Not such a big deal. You can manage. He davened his own in. Waited. Right? The Eibishter's there. What's he thinking about all day long? Us. What can we think about? Him. What's the big deal? Right? He's taking care of us all day long. It's not that he took time off and decided that maybe he wasn't going to be involved in keeping me alive yesterday at 3 a.m. Baruch Hashem. Kept me alive. Still here. Woke up next morning, said leGani. He didn't take time off. And so what we have to do, we can do. And that's what the Rebbeim are begging us to appreciate. They're constantly telling us that. Not to make our life more difficult, to make our life more lifted, to make it more illuminated and uplifted. Harder on a certain level? Well, yeah, okay, on a certain level, but on another level, no, much easier. Right? Because, hard is, what do I define as hard? Right? Is having kids hard? Ooh, what? Ask anybody who had kids, it's really hard. Yesterday, so our son and his wife and daughter were supposed to land at 2:30, but ended up landing at 4:30 because they came from Amsterdam. They went through Amsterdam, and Amsterdam yesterday was like -2 degrees and foggy, and so their plane couldn't take off. They said it was just absolutely freezing. They had the whole day in Amsterdam. They're looking forward to like walking around Amsterdam and seeing Amsterdam. They went to a hotel and sat in the room all day because it was freezing cold. They couldn't go outside. They went to the Chabad house with some guy who you would know. I don't remember the name. It wasn't Commissar, it was someone else. Yeah, with the P, I think, something like that. Anyway, right? No, I think it was a long name with it was Datotsky or something like that. Yeah, I think it started with a P. So they went to his Chabad house. They had some nice meals. Okay. So he got in a few hours later. So I woke up, my alarm went, and I had to, obviously, after leGani and splash, 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 I wanted to see if they had landed. So I looked at the WhatsApp. I figured he's going to say we landed. So at 4:30, there's a question from his brother. Did you land? And he says, yup. So why is his brother awake at 4:30 in the morning? Because he has a 2.5-week-old son. So he's awake at 4:30 in the morning, right? What's he doing today? He's going to Kollel, right? His first year of marriage, he's learning Kollel, right? But children's hard. It's hard having kids, right? He didn't sleep last night like you and I did. He slept for an hour and then got up for half an hour and then slept for 3 hours and then got up for another half an hour and then you go to work the next day. What are you going to do? Okay, that's what you do. Is it hard? Of course it's hard. It's only one thing harder. Not having kids. That's much harder. That's the hardest thing in the world. For someone who wants children, it can't happen. Very few things harder than that. Having kids, why is that hard? You're on your knees for 20 years. You're just tired all the time. Just all the time, you're tired. Anywhere you are, you could close your eyes and fall asleep. Right? It's like being in the army. Right? In the army, that you learn how to sleep in any position. You're in one of those trucks where there's 6 soldiers on each side on a bench, and they're all fast asleep. Like how do they sleep like that? Why, when you're a soldier, you sleep anywhere? Because the idea of getting to sleep, okay. So when you're a parent, you can sleep anywhere. Right? The only place parents would sleep like rocks on planes. The only reason they don't is because their kids are awake. And if the kids were asleep, they'd be asleep. Okay. Is it hard? Of course it's hard. It's just harder not doing it. Is being a Yid hard? Shred is not a Yid. Yidden have been saying that forever. It's hard to be a Jew. It's only one thing harder, to not be a Jew. It's the hardest thing in the world. You want to have a life that's real and connected to goodness and wholeness and godliness, much, much harder if you're not Jewish than if you are Jewish. If you are Jewish, it's there on a silver platter. It's everywhere. If you're not Jewish, it's much more difficult. Doesn't mean there aren't people who don't do it. There are very, very good people out there. It's much harder. It's not all laid out. It's all laid out for us. It's just there. You want it? Take it. That's what the Rebbe is saying. Ain't b'zeh balas klal. There's no limitations. It's just there. All this goodness. V'zeu. It's not late yet. Will be in a minute. V'zeu Adam ki yakriv. And this is Pshat, Adam ki yakriv. That in order for a person to come close to God, whom he can, it's dependent on you. No one's stopping us except me. The only guy who stops me is me. The only guy who stops you is you. Every now and then in history, there have been times where other people were stopping us, right? I mean, if some Soviet is throwing you in a jail, so then it's going to be pretty hard. But it's not exactly stopping you from serving the Eibishter. Right? He's stopping you from doing certain mitzvahs that you'd like to do because he won't let you have tefillin. Okay, but is he stopping you from serving the Eibishter? No, it's going to be a slightly different, right? The Alter Rebbe, right? What did the Alter Rebbe say? That what stopped him from reaching a state of Klosel Nefesh? What was the Alter Rebbe lacking in jail? He said he lacked nothing. He could just sit and learn Torah all day long. Now he doesn't need books to do that. You and I do, but he doesn't. Right? So he sat and learned Torah all day long, and he was coming to a point where he's almost to so feeling so elevated and uplifted that his soul was going to leave his body. And what happened? The whole story with the minister said, we'd asked him questions by why did God ask Adam Arisha Ayeko? Where are you? Doesn't God know where Adam is? Right? So there's a famous story. So first the Rebbe said Rashi's Pshat, and the Russian minister of education in Russia at the time, under the Tsar, said, no, I know what Rashi says. I want to know what you say. The non-Jewish Russian minister of education knew Rashi and Chumash. Why? Because any educated person knew Rashi and Chumash in those days. An educated, religious Christian person. Right? Okay, and then you figure the minister of education in Russia would be an educated person, right? So, unlike the secretary of education or minister of education in governments we are aware of, they might not be an educated person. But the minister of education in Russia under the Tsar was an educated person. Okay, so he knew. He said, "I know her." So the Rebbe, of course, gave him the famous answer that God is always asking, "Where are you? And what have you accomplished? And have you accomplished everything you're supposed to do?" And if, for instance, you're 54 years old. Have you accomplished what you're supposed to do in those 54 years? That's what the Rebbe said to him. Okay, so it's a famous story about the Boruch HaKodesh of the Alter Rebbe. Okay, but what's the part of the story that often isn't told? The Alter Rebbe said that because of that, he realized that he had more to do in life outside of jail, and that he shouldn't reach a state of Klosel Nefesh in jail and just leave the world in a state of spiritual upliftedness. The Russians in jail weren't affecting his relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Right? Otherwise, he had time. He said he had time to do anything he wanted. He wasn't able to do all those things that took up all his time all day long, running Russian Jewry. Right? Okay. So he had time to sit and learn and contemplate godliness all day long. And he almost reached a state of Klosel Nefesh. And that story convinced him that no, he had to stay in El Mazeh and he had more to do. So could he put on tefillin in jail? I don't know. I mean, did they give the Alter Rebbe tefillin? I don't know. I'm not sure. I would assume not, but maybe they did. I don't know. If anybody knows, tell me. I'm not sure. I've never heard that part of the story. You'd think they probably kept it from him.
I think so.
Yeah?
He said when
What?
when someone came in and he was like, there was a dread over him because he saw the
Yeah?
wearing the
Tefillah Shel Rosh?
tefillin, and he said something about the tefillin being, yes, but other Jews, I don't get this feeling. He says because the tefillin's something like not on their head, it's like on their head, not in their head, or something like that.
I've never heard the story, but okay. Makes sense. The Bechdei Adam Yiskarv L'Alakusu Mikem Shebachem Adavar Talu is dependent on you. Hainu Mikem Korban Lavaya, from you a korban to Hashem. Now the Rebbe is going to teach it the second way. Okay, up until now, what have we been saying? Adam Ki Yakriv Mikem, that the Mikem is connected to the beginning of the sentence, and it's saying you want to come close. It's dependent on you to be a korban. Now the Rebbe is going to explain. We'll see this tomorrow. Adam ki yakriv, a person who wants to come close, mikem korban lavaya. The mikem is connected to what's after it, as opposed to what's before it. Right? From you, there should be a korban. What's that korban? That korban is going to be mina behema, from the behema. What's the behema that you have to sacrifice and elevate? The animal soul. Shabbat. What does that mean? A bakar mina tzayin. The Rebbe is going to explain different types of animal souls. Goring oxen and quiet little shepselach. Both animal souls. But one might be a little
More rowdy.
Rowdy than the other, right? One might like movies. Gonna go to the movies. Wow, great movie. 14 universes were destroyed before the movie even started, just with the credits. There were the bombs. Wow, it was great. There might be some other guy who's oh, it's a very interesting film. Yes, I'm going to see a film. Interesting. Swedish director, very sophisticated. Very sophisticated. Yes. So there's an Nefesh Bahamis is an ox. He goes to movies. And there's an Nefesh Bahamis is a sheep. And film. It's a very good film. Very sophisticated. Yes. You should see, actually. You should see him. He's almost as good as that Italian director I saw last week. Because I'm also very sophisticated. Yes. I watch film. Some other put an I in between the L and the M. Film. Very nice film. Okay. So there's a guy who's, watching the football game with his shirt off in Ohio in December with a big O in his chest, right now. Right? And then there's the lady with her opera glasses. Soprano. Okay, one's Nefesh Elokis and one's Nefesh Bahamis? No, they're both Nefesh Bahamis. Right? There's definitely more sophisticated and less sophisticated Nefesh Bahamis. The lady watching the opera is definitely more sophisticated than the guy watching the football game with no shirt on in minus 27 degrees in Ohio in December. Columbus, I guess, right? That's where they do that.
Did you know they won the national championship?
Yeah, yay.
You
Go Ohio.
knows stuff.
So, well, you can't read the American news without running into this stuff, right? I mean, it's sort of news. Baruch Hashem, it's not the first news because there happened to be I think it was the same day that they inaugurated a president. But if they hadn't inaugurated a president, if they hadn't inaugurated a president on the same day, that would have been the first thing. It was like the third thing that I saw when I watched, when I read the news of, what's going on in America. Inaugurated president. No word of fires in Los Angeles. They're not out, but no word of them.
Yeah, no, we're done with them.
Oh, they're out?
No. We've just in the
Oh, right. We lost interest now. But they're still burning, I think, right?
Very much so.
It's terrible. But it's interesting. If you read you just read the headlines, right? You go down the page and read the headlines until you get to the part that you can't read anymore, and you go, because there's always some schmutz at the end. So no mention. No mention. It's like no one's interested anymore. I had attention span for a week of people suffering, and now I'm interested in other suffering. It's quite a stuff. It's probably terrible stuff. Anyway, hopefully it will end, and no one will be hurt. And so we'll see the other shot in the word mikem tomorrow morning. Moshe.